All right, welcome everybody. My name is James Ray. I'm with the Be Ready Utah team. I will be your moderator for the Disaster Myths presentation by Talisha Bacon. This means I will be seeing your questions as you type them in, and we'll go over your questions at the end of the presentation. I'd like to introduce Talisha. Talisha Bacon works at the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food as the Utah Rapid Response Team Coordinator, where she responds to foodborne illness outbreaks for human and animal food. Talisha has a license as an environmental health scientist. She currently serves as the president for the Utah Environmental Health Association Board and is a member of the Disaster Discovery Center Board of Directors. Talisha received her master's degree from Westminster in public health and her bachelor's degree from the University of Utah in exercise and sports science with a minor in nutrition. And when Talisha is not working, she enjoys spending time with her husband, trying new restaurants, baking crafts, and traveling. So welcome, Talisha, and go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, James. I'm just gonna put on my camera and I'm gonna share my screen with everyone. Just give me a minute. Okay. Just gotta flip the screens real quick. Sorry, hold on. All right. Thank you for being here with me this afternoon. Today I'm going to hopefully dispel some myths you have had about disasters and tell you the facts. There are many myths out there, but I only have time today to focus on a few of them. So before I start, I want to tell you a little bit about the Disaster Discovery Center. All right, so what is the Disaster Discovery Center? Known for the rest of this presentation, I'm just going to call it the DDC. So the DDC is a 501c3 educational nonprofit organization designed to identify key preparedness concepts from emergency experts, dispel myths by teaching facts, combines fun learning techniques from the museum industry, and making preparedness a lifestyle to protect what you value. We are here for the public to help you know how to prepare for disasters and to be prepared for whatever may come your way. The mission of the DDC is connecting people of all ages with empowering experiences that inspire disaster preparation through interactive entertainment, discovery, hands-on learning, and identifying key preparedness concepts from subject matter experts. The vision of the DDC is to be an interactive place inspiring disaster preparedness. And then some objectives of the DDC is to make sure that DDC presents relevant information to the public, models and teach actionable steps to prepare for disasters, connect what people value to help them prepare, help people experience a hands-on approach to practicing preparedness, collaborate and support consistent messaging through subject matter experts, and continue to provide the cutting-edge research on disaster preparedness. All right, so in this next section, we're going to talk about myths and facts with disasters, resources that you can go to find more information, and what are the best numbers to call during a disaster. So I want to start off this section with a quote that I heard once, and it says, "In a disaster, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your preparedness." All right, so myth or facts. There is so much information out there on how to be prepared. What supplies and equipment do you need to have? There is constant changing information, which is hard to keep up with. You can often feel buried with information before you even begin to start your preparation. Hopefully, through this presentation, you'll be able to know where to begin and dispel some myths and know the facts. So what is a myth and why are they bad? According to the dictionary, the definition of a myth is a widely held but false belief or idea. Oftentimes, these myths can be viewed as fact. Not knowing the difference between a fact and a myth can change the outcome of a situation. So I want you to think to yourself for a moment on when you thought something was a fact and then later on discovered it was a myth. How did you respond to that information? What behavior did you change? Did you tell your friends and family about your newfound information? This can cause individuals to respond inappropriately and endanger lives and cause unnecessary worry and fear. To know something is a fact, it will come from a reputable source, have updated information, research to back up what the fact is claiming. So for the next handful of slides, we're going to go over different types of disasters, the common myth associated with that particular disaster, and what the fact is from that myth. All right, so we're going to start out with tornadoes. The bathroom, so the myth is the bathroom is the safest place in your home. The fact, only if it is the most interior room in the house, which means it doesn't have windows or an exterior wall. Myth, only occurs during tornado season. Fact, tornadoes can occur in conjunction with a tornadoes can occur in conjunction with a thunderstorm, which can be during any season. All right, another myth about tornadoes. Stay in your car and or outdrive the tornado. Fact. Do not attempt to outdrive a tornado. Tornadoes are extremely unpredictable. They travel between 0 to 70 miles per hour with an average forward speed of 30 miles per hour. Rotating winds can be greater than 200 miles per hour. While tornadoes usually move in a southwest to northeast direction, they can move in any direction and change speed or direction at any time. The safest thing to do when driving and a tornado occurs is to pull over, get out, and lie in a ditch. As a last resort action, where you are hit with flying debris while driving, quickly pull over out of the traffic lanes and park. Keep your seatbelt fastened, put your head down below the windows, and cover your head with your hands, blanket, coat, or cushion. However, vehicles are extremely risky in a tornado. If you can safely get out of your vehicle without being hit by flying debris and get lower than the roadway, do so. Tornadoes have rolled cars and picked up even large vehicles and sent them flying through the air, flinging them 100 yards away and destroying them. However, they do not necessarily pick up all vehicles in their path. The updraft suction in their core, along with vertical velocity, allows vehicles to be picked up and flipped, especially if one end is heavier than the other. On April 3rd, 2012, big rig trucks were tossed into the air in Dallas, Texas. People have survived terrifying rides in their vehicles, but most tornado deaths today are a result of people failing to heed the warnings to get to a safe indoor location. So another myth about tornadoes, overpasses protect you from tornadoes. This myth has caused people to leave the safety of their homes to drive to an overpass during a tornado. However, the fatalities under overpasses have occurred when no other deaths resulted from the tornado. Overpasses can collapse, and parts are frequently strewn around following a tornado. Debris could be blasted underneath the structure, or winds could blow you out into the tornado itself. Getting under an overpass is actually more dangerous than just trying to outrun a tornado. Winds inside the tunnel are greater and accelerate with height. causing even greater pressure and wind speeds for people who climb up the embankment and hide inside the tiny spaces under the corners of the bridge. So this picture on this slide and the previous slide were from the tornadoes that hit Utah in 1999 in August. I think this was one of the first major tornadoes that hit Utah. So the immediate action for a tornado is seek shelter, cover head, and stay low. All right, thunderstorms and lightning. Myth: turning off electricity during a thunderstorm will save you from further damage. This myth is based off of superstition. The fact is, though many people believe it's necessary to turn off lights, TV, and other electronics during a storm to prevent unnecessary damage, the truth is electrical damage during a storm will happen or not happen whether the electricity is on or not. The safest place to be during a thunderstorm is inside a structure with indoor electricity and plumbing, as long as you avoid touching anything that conducts electricity. It's not safe to use plumbing because water and copper pipes are excellent conductors of electricity. Avoid using sinks, tubs, or showers during a thunderstorm. Experts also recommend unplugging sensitive electronics to prevent them from being damaged. The immediate action for a thunderstorm is when thunder roars, go indoors. If you are outdoors and hear thunder, you are in danger of being struck by lightning. Lightning can occur 10 miles away from rainfall. More than 80% of lightning fatalities are males ages 15 to 40 years old. All right, next one, house fires. Fires spread slowly. That's the myth. Okay, let me start. The myth is fires spread slowly and you usually have enough time to gather personal belongings. The fact is, the small flame from a candle can become uncontrollable in less than 30 seconds. House fires can become life-threatening in 2 minutes. They can engulf a home in flames in 5 minutes. During a house fire, you want to get out immediately and go to your pre-designated evacuation area. If you don't have one, we'll get into that in a little bit later, but make sure you have one. And then some safety tips for house fires are sleep with your bedroom door closed. Check bottom, middle, and top of the door as well as the doorknob with the back of your hand. Do not open the door if it's hot. Use alternative exit or block the bottom of your door with a wet towel and signal your location for help. Working smoke alarms decrease chances of dying in a fire by half. So make sure you have smoke alarms in the proper rooms and that you test them often. The immediate action for house fires are get out, stay out, and call for help. And if you are on fire, stop, drop, and roll. All right, flooding or floods. The myth: the water only looks deep. One of the easiest ways to measure water levels is to walk or drive through it. Fact: during a flood, there's no reliable way to predict how deep the water is. Layers of road surfaces may have washed away. People often walk or drive into floodwater to measure its depth, but never do it. Floods are the #1 cause of deaths associated with thunderstorms. More than half of flood-related drownings occur when a vehicle is driven into water. Floodwaters do not carry vehicles to safety. If your vehicle is trapped in rapidly moving water, stay inside the vehicle. If the water starts rising in your vehicle, seek refuge on the top of your vehicle. So the immediate action for flooding is turn around, don't drown. And if you're in a flash flood, listen, prepare to evacuate, and move to higher ground. And then this picture right here, or I should say table, shows that there's 6 inches of water. It will cause you to fall. It reaches the bottom of most passenger vehicles, which will make you lose control or stall your car. And if there's 12 inches of water, of moving water, it can float many vehicles, and 24 inches of moving water carries away SUVs and pickups. So water can be very dangerous. All right, earthquakes. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about earthquakes because there's going to be a whole nother presentation throughout this webinar. I can't remember what day it's on, but it's going to go more into earthquakes. So we're just going to do a couple myths. First myth, the safest place to be in an earthquake is under a doorway. Fact, this outdated advice stems from a photo of an adobe house following a California earthquake where the doorway was the only part of the house still standing. A doorway is no stronger than any other part of the house, provides no protection from falling or flying objects, may have a swinging door that could cause injuries, could lead to being trampled in a public place. The next myth for earthquakes. If you are in a building when an earthquake strikes, it is best to run outside so the building doesn't collapse on you. Fact, while an open field where nothing can fall on you may be the safest place to be during an earthquake, most injuries from earthquakes in the US occur when people are hit by flying objects when entering or exiting buildings. If you are inside, stay inside. Do not use the stairs or elevator or run out of a building. If you are outside, get to an open area away from the buildings, utility wires, streetlights, trees, and anything else that could fall. The only time moving outside is recommended is outside the US if you are in an unreinforced adobe building with a heavy ceiling. So the immediate action for earthquakes is drop, cover, and hold on. Drop down on your hands and knees to protect you from falling and allow you to move if needed. Cover your head and neck and your entire body if possible under a sturdy table or desk to protect from falling objects. An inside wall or corner where nothing can fall on you is second option if no table or desk is nearby. Hold on to your shelter and move with your shelter if it shifts until the shaking stops, covering your head and neck. Stay away from sources of breaking glass like windows, mirrors, china cabinets, and entertainment centers. The only exception to drop, cover, and hold on is when you are in a country with unengineered construction or an unreinforced adobe building with a heavy ceiling, like I mentioned earlier. Then you'll want to move outside and quickly to an open space. All right, again with about water storage, I'm just going to talk about one myth because there's going to be a whole nother presentation later on throughout this webinar that's solely about water. So the myth, water can expire. Fact, water does not expire, but stored water may have a flat or stale taste, which can easily be remedied by pouring between containers or shaking to add oxygen to it. However, water may be contaminated with microorganisms or chemicals. So besides storing water, have several methods for treating and filtering water. A number of sources now suggest water does not need to be rotated. In 2012, the Food Science and Nutrition Department at Brigham Young University conducted a water study testing 240 water samples from 90 randomly selected Utah residents who stored tap water in various containers in basements, garages, main living spaces, and outdoors. Samples have been stored anywhere from 3 months to over 25 years with an average storage time of 4.6 years. 64% did not rotate the water. Coliform bacteria, which is a harmless naturally occurring bacteria in the soil and an environment where presence can indicate other possible contaminants, were found in only 7 samples. but none of them tested positive for E. coli. Research and testing by the Central Utah Water Conservancy District also indicates water stores extremely well. Utah State University Extension Services says drinking water should have an indefinite shelf life if stored in a clean, disinfected containers, kept cool, dry, and dark. Kept in cool, dry, and dark places. Bacteria and algae like heat and light. Not stored near gasoline, kerosene, pesticides, or similar substances. Assessed every 6 months for shrinkage, leakage, cloudiness, algae, and other contaminants, and replaced as needed. All right, when to turn off the gas. Myth, always turn off your natural gas after an earthquake. Facts, only shut off your gas if you see, hear, or smell a leak, if you hear a hissing or blowing noise, or if your home is off its foundation. It's important to note that only a professional can turn the gas back on. So do not practice shutting off your gas at home, but know how to do it and make sure you have the tools on hand so you can do it quickly if needed. During the San Francisco Bay earthquake in 1989, there was 156,000 customers who turned off their gas meters. Only 2% of those meters that were turned off were necessary. Crews found 10,000 structures with damage. People waited at least 5 days to get their gas restored. And the average time it takes to check the systems and turn back your gas is about 30 minutes. So from that earthquake, the crews were called in from Washington State, Utah, and other California locations to help with the demand. All right, so now we're going to go over some myths about disasters. So first one, disasters bring out the worst in people, and that's the myth. The fact is, most people spontaneously unite to help each other. People are often altruistic and generous during disasters. Looting, theft, rioting, and violence are rare and isolated. Myth, things are back to normal in a few weeks. The fact, it takes months and sometimes years to rebuild and for things to return to normal. Even once utilities are up and running, debris is removed and streets are repaired, adverse effects may linger. Individuals and communities may be coping with the economic consequences of rebuilding, financial difficulties, environmental contamination, and physical and emotional health challenges. Chronic medical conditions can be exacerbated by adverse weather, lack of food or water, and physical and emotional trauma. Sleep disorders or feelings of loss, helplessness, depression, and/or anxiety are all common reactions following a disaster. Some people never fully recover the life they lost, and some places may never recover to how they were before the disaster. All right, next myth about disasters. Food is always needed for disaster victims. The fact, massive food aid is seldom required. Food is often perishable and frequently doesn't meet nutritional needs. Myth, clothing is always needed by victims. The fact, clothes are almost never needed, but is one of the most commonly donated items. Myth, anything we can get to the victims should be good enough. Fact, needing to inventory, store, and dispense items adds to the chaos following a disaster. A community following Superstorm Sandy rented a large warehouse to house all the supplies they received, but lacked the personnel for organizing and distributing the donations. The best thing to donate is money. By donating money, those that need disaster relief are more likely able to get what is needed for that area. All right, another disaster myth. Most can be avoided or prevented. Fact, almost all cannot be foreseen or avoided. Tornadoes, floods, and earthquakes cannot be prevented, but you can become knowledgeable about potential disasters and how to prepare for them, which is what this whole webinar for these next 2 days is about. Myth: all I need is a 72-hour kit, food, and water. Fact: a few supplies will be helpful, but you really need a plan. Practice, practice, practice. Practice your plan. If you don't have a plan, create a plan. Practice your plan with your family or those you live with at least twice a year. Rotate your food and water storage often, and go through your 72-hour kit regularly to make sure everything is still in place and works. Maybe you need to add or take away some supplies depending on needs that have changed. And make sure you have one in your office, your home, your work, places that you are often. Although I believe right now the recommendation is 96 hours, so just be safe, have one for like a week or two. Okay, so here are some 6 ways or activities to help you prepare beyond having a 72 to 96 hour kit, food, water, and supply. So 6 ways are plans, documents, supplies, skills, finances, and mitigation. So first one, make plans for what to do to be better prepared at home, work, school, and other settings. Identify safe locations in each room. Select evacuation routes and return routes with alternatives for each family member to travel by foot, car, or public transportation. Choose family meeting places outside the home in case of a fire, outside the neighborhood in case of evacuation, outside the area in case of major devastation. So make sure you have different meeting places for different scenarios based on what disaster you're practicing for. Establish out-of-state contacts and make sure each family member has the contact information of the designated out-of-state contact person, and that they will text their location and condition and plans too. So we're going to go over more information about out-of-state contacts in a few minutes. Second one, prepare documents. Prepare important personal documents such as identification, contacts, insurance policies, any documents that you wouldn't want to be stored. Make sure you have them backed up electronically and physical copy if possible. Supplies. Gather and organize important supplies useful in an emergency and store in strategic locations. Assess what you have and need to acquire supplies and equipment. Identify the many common household items already owned, which can be useful in a disaster, and write them down. Skills. Learn and practice skills that are useful during an emergency, such as protective immediate actions, which we've gone over a few of them already today, first aid, and fire suppression. Finances. Safeguard finances by purchasing insurance, setting aside emergency funds, and budgeting for supplies and mitigation. Keep some cash on hand, preferably in small bills. Mitigation. Mitigate your homes and businesses for disaster. Securing building contents. Secure loose objects, appliances, or furniture that can fall or break during shaking. Causes most injuries in minor to moderate earthquakes, where relatively good building standards exist. Rearrange contents of cabinets and shelves to place heavy or breakable items lower. Make structural adjustments to protect and reinforce buildings. Install gas appliance shutoff valves for protection from earthquakes. Bolt house to foundation and secure roof to house in unreinforced masonry, so URM structures, and landscape to create a defensible space to protect against fire, flooding, and crime. All right, so some resources, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of information. I just want to highlight a few of them. And this is by no means a comprehensive list, or these are just some ones that the state uses and are very beneficial. So the first one is Be Ready Utah, which you will hear a lot about in the next day and a half. But Be Ready Utah is the state's official emergency preparedness campaign managed by the Utah Department of Public Safety's Division of Emergency Management. Personal and family preparedness is the key to survival in and subsequent recovery from emergencies and disasters. Increasing that preparedness statewide is the goal for Be Ready Utah. Be Ready Utah is designed as a grassroots approach to preparedness with a focus on every individual's personal responsibility for preparedness. Be Ready Utah provides valuable preparedness information. They support preparedness fairs, conduct preparedness presentations, and educate through social media and through their website. They believe that preparedness leads to prosperity. Every community can work towards preparing its citizens. Be Ready Utah is here to help. On their website, they also say we encourage you to take on the challenge to be ready. How? Make a plan, get a kit, be informed, and get involved. Create an emergency plan. Build a disaster supply kit, be informed about Utah's risk and corresponding protective actions, and help others in your community to do the same. Look for opportunities to volunteer your expertise and talents. The time and effort we invest in preparing now will help us navigate through and recover quickly from what may come our way at the most unexpected moment. So that's just kind of what the Be Ready Utah program is about in a nutshell. And they also have on their website a Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country. It's a guide that is, like I said, on their website, and it covers 7 steps to earthquake safety, information about how earthquakes can affect you, and how to prepare for earthquakes, and a ton of other information. The Department of Homeland Security says, because your family may not be together, when a disaster strikes, it is important to create a plan in advance. It is also essential to have a disaster supply kit that includes basic items from your home that you may need in case of an emergency. Your plan should include how you get to a safe place, how you can contact each other, how will you get back together, and what you will do in different situations. And again, on this website too, there's a lot of different helpful tips and guidance on how to prepare for disasters. The USU Extension, they say proper food and water storage can assist families in case of a disaster. When a disaster strikes, it may be impossible to obtain food and water, even at the supermarket. Therefore, it is important to have adequate food storage and water available in case of a disaster. The Civil Defense recommends storing food and water adequate for each family member for 2 weeks. The USU Extension website has a handful of information on food storage and proper storage and how to make it last longer. So this is one of the things that they have. It's a guide to food storage for emergencies, and it goes into more detail about ways to properly store food. Ready.gov. This website was launched in February 2003. Ready.gov is a national public service campaign designed to educate and empower the American people to prepare for, respond to, and mitigate emergencies, including natural and man-made disasters. The goal of the campaign is to promote preparedness through public involvement. Ready.gov has a list on disasters and emergencies and how you can prepare for avalanches, extreme heat, house fires, earthquake, emergency alerts, winter weather, and many other disasters. There's about 30 plus disasters on there. The American Red Cross can help you prepare your family, your pets, and your home for common emergencies and natural disasters. Explore their website for information about emergencies that can occur where you live and learn the difference between a watch and a warning. Get tips for preparedness steps that you can take today, what to do in an emergency, and how to repair and rebuild afterwards. So these are some examples of the disasters and emergencies that you can learn from about the American Red Cross. There's landslides, hurricane, highway safety, drought, earthquakes, poisoning. It's a long, extensive list as well. This was just one short snapshot. The National Weather Service provides weather, water, and climate data, forecasts, and warnings for the protection of life and property, and enhancement of the national economy. This map by the National Weather Service will tell you where the following warnings are: flash floods, winter storms, high winds, tropical storms, floods, and again, there's a handful of other warnings. They also provide safety tips for various disasters, as you can see on here, for floods, fog, safe boating, rip currents, lightning, and hurricanes. All right, so another resource is the disaster discovery website. So if you would like to test your knowledge on more disaster myths and facts, you can visit our website at disasterdiscoverycenter.org. And I just want to take you there for a brief second. So this is what it looks like. So when you come on, you can you'll be familiar with it. So this is where you go to participate in our surveys. So if you click here, participate in our surveys, you have the disaster myth survey. And once you take that, it's a 20-question survey. And then you'll get all the answers and responses of the facts with the myths, and the readiness survey on to find out how ready you are for a disaster. So those are the two surveys that you can take just to kind of assess your preparedness. And if you have questions, here's our information up here, info@disasterdiscoverycenter.org. And then here's our home button. And, oh, sorry, I'm going to show you just one more thing. This is the About Us page. And I've already went over this, but you know, the vision, our mission, our outcome, our board of directors that are on here. So this is just a brief overview of our website. We always encourage people to volunteer and donate and to take our surveys. Okay, so back to our presentation. I think you guys can see this now. Okay. All right, so remember what motivates people in an emergency is you. It's a family, a friend, or neighbor sharing what they have done to prepare. So we hope that everyone will share the information that they have learned and make sure it's the factual information. So who to call? If something happens, all I have to do is call 911. So that's the myth. Fact, not enough emergency personnel or call capacity to handle the demand. Calling 911 is the appropriate response to a small-scale emergency requiring immediate help from police, fire, or ambulance for any of the following situations: fire, crime in progress, car crash, especially with injuries, medical emergencies such as not breathing or gasping for air, allergic reaction, chest pain, uncontrollable bleeding, stroke, down power lines. The emergency services are set up to handle the average number of emergencies in a community. However, in a disaster with widespread damage, emergency services are quickly overwhelmed or incapacitated. The 911 call center for Manhattan, located in one of the Twin Towers, left over 1.6 million people in Manhattan with no emergency services on September 11, 2001. If services are still operational, the most pressing needs are attended to first. Because the emergency personnel will be busy taking care of their first priorities, families are encouraged to be prepared to be on their own following a disaster, which again is what we're hoping that this webinar will help with over the next 2 days. So what number do you call? 211 if it's for a non-emergency. 211 helps you find shelter information, evacuation routes, points of distribution if there's medication that needs to be dispersed, disaster relief information, and non-life-threatening information. And then also make sure you know your local fire department phone numbers and police stations. All right, out-of-state contacts. The myth: I will be able to contact anyone locally during an emergency. The fact is, local lines get jammed with traffic that is greater than Mother's Day phone traffic, meaning that that's what they use. That's what they compare, is Mother's Day's traffic is the highest called of the day. I mean, of the year, sorry, day of the year. So try to avoid calling local numbers so the system will be available for emergency responders. The out-of-state telephone contact should be a long-distance call and far enough away that they won't be involved in an emergency in your area or region. What does being able to communicate with loved ones provide? It provides peace of mind, and knowing that we can be reunited with loved ones will help us get through a disaster. So the criteria for out-of-state contact is make sure it's a relative or a close friend, a family member that everyone has a contact phone numbers for, and vice versa. And then the contact relays information to other family members on the safety, and everyone checks in during an emergency. All right, so then again, I briefly mentioned this when I gave you a tour of our website, super brief tour, but if you ever want to volunteer for the DDC, this is just a few volunteer options that we have: website design, social media, graphic artist, workshop instructor, doing research, and there's many more areas for volunteer. And then for contact information, this is our contact information, which is info@disasterdiscoverycenter.org. So that is my presentation today. Thank you for listening and joining. And now I will turn it over to James for questions.
All right, thank you, Talisha, and a very good job. We did have one question that came in where Philip Speed was asking if we'll be able to download these slides. And so we do have that URL link for that in the Talisha. Are you okay if these slides get shared?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe you have a copy of the PDF form, so that's totally fine.
All right, so we'll get that link shared with the audience then. Thank you, Talisha.
You're welcome.
One other question was if I'm storing water, do I need to put a purifying agent into it?
You know, that's a really good question, and unfortunately, I don't know that entire answer. I know there's a presentation going to be on water a little bit later, so I'm going to refer to James. Do you know the answer to that one, James?
Yeah, I think I can help answer this. And I do believe that this will be gone over in one of the upcoming presentations as well. But purifying water is not needed if it's culinary water coming from your city tap. So if you're getting water right out of your tap, it's already been cleaned. Just make sure it goes into a clean container, and then it should be able to store just fine. We would purify water typically if you know that a contaminant of sort has been introduced to it, or if you're getting the water from a questionable source. So that's that question.
Thanks, James.
Yeah. Another question is the DDC, Disaster Discovery Center, a Utah-specific effort?
So that's actually a really good question. So the efforts that we've been focusing on, it will be in Utah, but we want it nationwide. So I guess that's a yes and no answer. Yes, that it's originated in Utah, but like I said, for the whole US.
All right.
And I guess the whole world, not just the US.
And thank you, Dean Mitchell, for that question. A question from Kathy Meyer is if you would be willing to repeat the quote about preparedness, you don't rise to.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let me get it real quick. Hold on. Just gonna give me a moment. I'm sure I could flip through the slides, but I thought if I had it on paper, it might be a little faster. Probably not, but I'm trying. All right, here's the quote. In a disaster, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your level of preparedness.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One additional question is, do you offer a section for disabled specific planning. And that was by Jill Sorensen.
Yes, so in the Disaster Discovery Center, we do have a section for that. I just didn't bring it up on our presentation today because it didn't really go along with the myths or facts. But in the outline for the museum, it is completely covered and there's information about it and ways to help with those who might be slightly disadvantaged for emergencies and disasters. And that also includes like infants and the elderly and younger kids.
All right. With that, let's go to a poll question. I'm going to launch a poll question here. And hopefully each of you can respond to this. Are you guys seeing that okay, Talisha?
Yes.
All right. So poll results are coming in. We're at about 50% have voted so far. So we'll give it a few more seconds. All right, in 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll close the poll and let's share the results. All right. Thank you for that. And let's go back. So it looked like most everybody liked this presentation. That's really good. With that, I believe we'll do a brief commercial. One of the sponsors for today is the Disaster Discovery Center. And let me see if I can share my screen okay. One moment. Oh, I think Talisha, you'll have to unshare.
Oh, I have to unshare. Sorry. I was like, I knew I was forgetting something. Sorry, guys. Did I just do it? Oh, okay. Now try it. Sorry.
Maybe Kathy Holder, if you could help us figure out how to get my screen to show. Oh, there we go.
Should be good now.
All right, and then.
And James, while you're doing this, let me just mention that we have about 6 minutes before the top of the hour. So this is also a time to take a break if you need to, and then we'll be starting the next session right at 2 o'clock. Feel free to watch the video or a good time to take a break.
Absolutely. So if you can, are you seeing my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Let's just get this set up here. Okay, I just want to play this really quick and I'll just say a few things about it. The Disaster Discovery Center has been one of the sponsors for the Be Ready Utah Expo for a number of years. And we've had a lot of things set up there. So our perception of reality is mostly based off of what we see and also what we hear. Let's expand our perception by what we experience. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be in a 7.0 earthquake? Imagine being able to choose the size of the earthquake and actually write it with your friends. Ever wonder what it feels like to be in a tornado or hurricane force winds? Imagine a wind tunnel where you can choose your wind speed, strap in, and take it for a ride. Ever wonder what it feels like to be in an airplane emergency? Imagine a safe experience where you can put on the oxygen mask and life vest, open the door to the wing, and slide down the airplane slide. Ever wonder what it feels like to escape from a house fire through an upper window using a window ladder? Imagine a place where you could practice taking out the window screen and use a window ladder to climb out and down into a foam pit. Imagine a place where your children can safely play on and in full-sized emergency vehicles with a great big playground while learning what our professional responders do. These are just a few examples with over 50 more. This is what the Disaster Discovery Center is becoming. While the center is not yet built, we are making this a reality, and you can help us. Visit disasterdiscoverycenter.org to discover ways you can help make the Disaster Discovery Center a reality. Thank you. With that, I got just a couple of poll questions to ask here. I'll launch this poll question. Can everybody see the poll okay?
Yes.
All right. All right, we're about 50% of people have voted so far. We'll give it about 10 more seconds. All right, with that, I'm going to close the poll and we'll share those results. So it looks like 66% said yes, 26% they're interested. Well, thank you for those responses. And then one more poll. Let's hide that one. And here's one more poll. Go ahead and take a moment to answer this poll. All right, we'll give it 5 more seconds. All right, I'll close down the poll and let's share those results. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in those polls. And with that, we'll turn the time back over to Wade Matthews, unless there's any remaining questions.
James, we are at 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next session, but thank you very much for helping us with that. Talisha Bacon, thank you very much for sharing that great presentation and expertise.